If you looked at your bedroom door right now, are you sure it's the same door you saw this morning? I used to think so too, until I found out there was a door in my house I had never once looked at. Not once. In 17 days of living there. This is the story of that door. Stay until the end, because the ending isn't anything you're expecting. 3 months ago, after my lease ended and I couldn't afford to renew it, I went looking for somewhere cheap. I found a listing, an old house in a quiet enough neighborhood for almost half the going rate. When I called the landlord, something was off about his voice. Not scary, just tired. He said the house was a bit old and that some neighbors talk about it. Then quickly changed the subject and offered me the first month free if I signed that week. I took it. Who turns down a deal like that? On move-in day, I noticed something strange. The address didn't exist on any map. Not Google Maps, not even the local mail carrier who told me. This street only goes up to number 15. If you're saying number 18, either there's a mistake or... He never finished the sentence. I figured it was an old registration error. I didn't know better yet. The first night, nothing felt wrong. The house was quiet. Maybe too quiet. But the second night, at exactly 3:17 in the morning, I woke up to a knocking sound. 3 knocks. Soft but unmistakable. Coming from somewhere down the hallway. I stepped out of my room. The hallway was empty. But I noticed something I hadn't paid attention to before. A door at the end of the hall, half hidden behind an old bookshelf the landlord must have left there. I looked at it. It seemed ordinary enough. A handle, a lock. I just couldn't remember seeing it on the day I first toured the house. I went back to bed. Told myself it was exhaustion. The third night, the same 3 knocks. 3:17. To the minute. This time I put my hand on the handle. Locked. From behind the door I heard breathing. Slow. Steady. Like someone who had been waiting. I didn't go for a key. I went back to my room and locked the door. I stayed awake until morning. The next morning I talked to one of the neighbors, an older man named Mr. Smith. When I told him where I lived, his face changed. "You're in that house? The one with no number?" I asked what he meant. He said the house used to have a number, 18, but about 10 years ago it was removed from the city's records. I asked why. He said the person who lived there back then vanished one night. Never found. No body, no trace. Just a note left on the kitchen table that read, "Don't open the door. 17 days is enough." I asked why 17 days. He said, because that's all he'd lived there. 17 days. Same as you. I had been there for 14. I didn't sleep that night. 3 a.m. was approaching and I'd decided I needed to know what was behind that door. I pulled the bookshelf aside. Under my phone's flashlight, I saw it clearly. Wooden, old, with a simple lock that popped open with a bent paperclip. Behind the door was a short hallway. Not a room, a hallway. And at the far end, another door. Identical to the one I'd just walked through from my own bedroom. I told myself it was probably just an extra room the landlord didn't know about. I stepped forward. On the hallway wall there were scratches, like someone had counted days with a fingernail or something sharp. 1, 2, 3, up to 17. And after 17, something else was written, in a different, shakier hand. If you're reading this, it's your turn now. I couldn't stop myself from opening the last door. My heart was pounding. The breathing from behind the final door was still there, steady as before. I turned back. I couldn't make myself go further. I closed both doors, pushed the bookshelf back into place, and for the rest of that day I didn't even look toward that hallway. Day 17 arrived. I spent the whole day away from the house, a cafe, a park, even sitting in my car until late. I told myself if I just didn't go back, whatever was supposed to happen wouldn't happen. But at 11 that night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was my own voice. Exactly my voice saying, "Why haven't you come back? I'm waiting for you here." The call ended. A few seconds later, a text came in from the same number. A photo of my house taken from inside, from just behind that last door in the hallway. In the photo, I could see myself, asleep in my own bed. I had to go back. I needed to know what was happening. When I walked in, it was exactly 3:17. The bookshelf had already moved from in front of the door, on its own, without me touching it. The first door stood open, the hallway, darker than before, and the sound of breathing this time. It was right behind me. I spun around. No one was there. The hallway behind me was empty, but the last door, the one I'd never opened, now stood wide open. A dim yellow light spilled out from behind it, like the light of an old bedroom. I stepped forward. Each step felt heavier than the last. Not from fear, but from something stranger. A sense of familiarity. Like I'd walked this path before. Behind the door was a bedroom, identical to my own. Same bed, same window, same curtains, except everything was covered in dust. Spider webs stretched across the curtains. On the bed lay a notebook. I picked it up. It was my handwriting. The last page read, Day 17. I heard the knocking. I know I have to go look. I know if I don't, another version of me will go instead. There's always another version that goes. The date at the top of the page was today's exact date, but the year was 10 years earlier. I understood then. I wasn't the first person to see this room, and I wouldn't be the last. Every time someone moves into this house, a version of them gets trapped in this room forever, writing the same page over and over, waiting for the next person to come and open the door. And when the door opens, the old version is freed, and the new one stays in their place. Behind me, I heard a door close. My door, the one I had walked out of. I turned back toward the door, locked now, from the other side, the side I was standing on. I sat down on the dust-covered bed. The notebook was still in my hands. The next page was blank. I knew what I had to write. It felt like I'd always known. I picked up the pen and began. Day 17. I heard the knocking. And the moment I finished that line, I heard a knock from behind the door. 3 knocks. Slow, steady. It was exactly 3:17. If you think this is just a story, try one thing. Wake up tonight at exactly 3:17 and look at the nearest door you've never opened. Maybe you won't see anything. Or maybe it's your turn. I used to think the scariest thing in the world was realizing someone was watching you. I was wrong. The scariest thing is realizing you've been reading his diary for 6 months, and every single entry is about you, written in your handwriting. My name doesn't matter. Not by the end of this, anyway. It started with a gift. A small leather journal wrapped in brown paper left outside my apartment door with no note. I assumed it was from my sister. She was always leaving me things like that, or little just because presents. I texted her a photo. She didn't reply for 3 hours. That's not from me, she finally wrote, but it's pretty. Keep it. Someone likes you. I laughed it off. I even started using it as a regular notebook. Grocery lists, half-finished poems, the usual clutter of a lonely mind. I didn't think about who might have left it. Not yet. 2 weeks later, I opened the journal to write something down and found a page I didn't remember writing. It was in my handwriting. My exact handwriting. The way I loop my G's. The way my T's slant right when I'm tired. It said, "She wore the blue coat again today. She always wears blue when she's sad. I wonder if she knows I can tell." I hadn't worn my blue coat in over a year. It was in a box in my closet. I checked that night. The box had been opened. The coat was gone. I told myself I was sleepwalking, sleep writing. People do stranger things in their sleep. I'd read about it once. Some article about a woman who cooked full meals in the night and never remembered a bite. I hid the journal in a drawer under old bills and locked my bedroom door for the first time since I moved in. The next morning, the journal was on my pillow. Open, a new entry. She thinks locks will help. That's cute. I did the reasonable thing. I told my neighbor Fareed, an older man who'd lived in the building for a decade and noticed everything. Every late-night visitor, every broken elevator, every argument through thin walls. He went pale when I described the journal. "There was a girl in 4B years ago," he said slowly. "She used to say the same thing. A book. Handwriting that wasn't hers but was hers. She moved out overnight. Left everything behind. Furniture, clothes, everything." "Where did she go?" Fareed looked at the floor. "Nobody knows. But her mail still comes here sometimes. 16 years later. I stopped sleeping in my bedroom. I started sleeping on the couch. Journal locked in my car 3 blocks away. In a parking garage with a keypad code only I knew. I told myself that distance was the same as safety. 3 blocks felt like an ocean. For 2 nights, nothing happened. I let myself believe it was over. That whatever had been leaving gifts and writing in the dark had lost interest or found someone else or simply run out of whatever it needed from me. I even slept with the lights off again. I remember thinking almost proudly that I'd outsmarted it. It didn't matter. On the 3rd night, I dreamed of walking, not falling, not being chased, just walking, calm and purposeful, down a long concrete corridor lit by flickering fluorescent tubes, the kind that hum before they die. In the dream, I knew exactly where I was going. I had a code memorized. I had a key in my hand. I never once felt afraid in the dream, and somehow that was worse than any nightmare I'd had before. 3 days later, I woke up on the couch. Not in it, on top of it. Fully dressed in the blue coat, shoes on, keys in my hand. journal sat on the coffee table. I checked my phone. My location history showed a drive to the parking garage at 2:58 a.m., 3 minutes inside, a drive back, new entry. She tried to leave me in the car. I don't like being left. That was the first time I considered a horrifying possibility. Maybe there was no he at all. Maybe there was no stalker leaving gifts and writing in a stranger's hand. Maybe some other part of me was doing this, and it was getting bored of hiding. I needed to know if this had happened before. Really happened. Not just Fareed's fading memory of a rumor. I spent a weekend digging through old local news archives, missing person forums, the kind of dead internet corners where nobody scrolls anymore. I found her, the girl from 4B. 16 years ago, she'd posted on an old forum, the kind with a cracked layout and a handful of active users. Her final post, time-stamped 3:47 a.m., read like it had been typed by two different people arguing over the same keyboard. I don't think it's separate from me anymore. I think I'm losing the parts where it ends and I begin. She never posted again. I brought the journal to a psychiatrist. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to sound like an anxious woman with intrusive thoughts, not someone convinced her own body had a passenger. She suggested dissociative episodes, stress-induced. She prescribed something to help me sleep and asked me to keep a normal diary. Ironic, given the one already doing that job for me. I didn't tell her about Fareed or the girl from 4B or the 16 years of unclaimed mail. Some part of me was already protecting the thing that was hurting me. The same way you'd protect a secret you weren't ready to say out loud. I remember sitting in my car afterward for almost an hour, engine off, just staring at the prescription, wondering if the person picking it up at the pharmacy would even be me. That night, for the first time, I decided to fight back instead of run. I set up my phone on a tripod, pointed at my bed, recording the whole night. If something was going to happen, I wanted proof. For the psychiatrist, for Fareed, for myself. I barely slept. Every creak of the building, every settle of the walls, I convinced myself was the beginning of something. Around 1 a.m., I almost turned the camera off, almost gave up and told myself none of this was real. I didn't. I don't know why. Some instinct told me that tonight, of every night, mattered. I woke up at 6 a.m. to the sound of my own voice, already awake, already talking, in the next room. Calm, conversational, like she was catching up with an old friend. The footage showed me getting out of bed at 3:12 a.m. Not groggy, not confused, deliberate, like someone who had done this 100 times before. She didn't fumble in the dark. She didn't reach for a light switch. She walked to the desk, opened the drawer without hesitation, found the pen on the first try and began writing in the journal without pause, and looking directly at the camera the entire time, smiling in a way I have never smiled in a mirror. I didn't watch the rest of the footage. I couldn't. But the journal had a new entry that morning, and this one wasn't about me watching myself. This one was addressed to me directly, for the first time. You finally looked good. I've been so lonely being the only one who sees you clearly. Everyone else only sees the parts you let them see. I see all of it. That's what obsession really is. Not wanting someone, knowing them completely. I know you completely now. I packed a bag that morning. I was done being reasonable, done pretending sleep problems could explain any of this. I was going to my sister's, 3 states away. Journal left behind, phone left behind, blue coat left behind. Every object this thing had ever touched, abandoned in that apartment like a shed skin. I made it to the parking garage. My car was there, exactly where I'd left it. The journal was on the passenger seat. I hadn't put it there. I hadn't touched it in 4 days. I opened it with hands that weren't quite mine anymore, trembling in a rhythm I didn't recognize as my own fear. The final entry, still wet with fresh ink, read, "Don't worry. I'm not going to hurt her. I would never hurt myself. I just want to drive for a while. You can rest now. I'll wear the blue coat. I always did like blue." I don't remember starting the engine. I remember the road. I remember 3 states passing beneath the tires like they weighed nothing. I remember arriving somewhere I didn't recognize, in a coat I don't remember putting on, and a stranger on a porch waving at me like she'd been expecting me all along. The way you wave at someone you've written to for months. I'm writing this now in a new journal, a blank one. I bought it myself, I'm almost sure of that. If you're reading this, and you've ever found something small and unexplained waiting outside your door, a book, a note, a gift with no name on it, don't open it. And if you already have, check your handwriting. Check it carefully. Because right now, somewhere, in ink that isn't quite yours, something is writing about you. And it's almost done introducing itself. My aunt left me her house, her savings, and one folder on her laptop labeled "Do Not Watch." I watched it anyway. That was 6 days ago. Tonight, the folder has one more file in it than it did this morning. And I never added it. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that 3 weeks ago, my Aunt Farida died alone in a house on the edge of town, and I was the only family she had left to leave it to. She'd been a strange woman, not unkind, just private. She installed cameras in every room of that house 15 years ago, back when nobody did that. Said it was for security. I always thought it was something else, something closer to fear. When the lawyer handed me her laptop along with the keys, there was a folder on the desktop, one file inside, a video link. The file was named simply watch_it_before_they_do.mp4. I opened it in the parking lot before I'd even seen the house. It wasn't a video. It was a live stream, still running, time-stamped in real time, feeding from a camera inside a house I hadn't stepped into yet. The stream showed an empty hallway, my aunt's hallway. I recognized the wallpaper from old photos. The timestamp in the corner matched my phone's clock exactly. Live, right now. Then, at the far end of the hallway, a door I would later learn didn't exist swung open by itself. I closed the laptop. I told myself it was a glitch, a looped recording, anything but what it looked like. I drove to the house anyway. I needed to see that hallway for myself. The house matched the stream exactly, except for one thing. The hallway on my screen had 4 doors. The real hallway only had 3. I stood in that hallway for a long time, counting the doors with my finger like a child. as if counting again would make a fourth one appear. It didn't. Not yet. I told myself old houses get renovated, doors get sealed, walls get moved. I told myself a lot of things that first night, and none of them let me sleep. The stream kept running. I left it open on the laptop propped on the kitchen counter, mostly because I was too unsettled to close it, and somehow more unsettled by the idea of not watching. On the second night, I noticed the footage was never quite in sync with real time. If I walked into the kitchen, the version of me on screen entered 2 or 3 seconds before I actually did. I tested it. I stood in the doorway and waited. The me on screen walked in first. Then I followed. Like I was chasing my own reflection into a room I hadn't entered yet. Here's the first thing that changed everything. The camera the footage was streaming from didn't exist. My aunt's system had 4 cameras. I found the receipts, the installation records, the exact make and model. 4 cameras, 4 feeds. The stream on the laptop was a 5th. I searched the entire house for a camera that could produce that angle. There wasn't one. I searched the property records for a hallway with 4 doors. There wasn't one of those either. Not officially. Not according to any blueprint filed with the city. But the house on the screen believed it had one. And every night, it looked a little more finished. I called an electrician. I called a guy who specialized in old security systems. Both of them looked at the panel. Both of them told me the same thing. There were 4 cameras wired into that system, and the 5th feed I kept describing simply wasn't connected to anything in this house. Could be a neighbor's camera bleeding into your signal, the second guy said, not really believing it himself. I wanted to believe him. I really did. Until that night, when the stream showed the hallway again. And this time, the 4th door was open. And through it, I could see my own kitchen. From an angle no camera in my kitchen could produce. I started digging into my aunt's history, because by then I'd stopped pretending this was a technical problem and started treating it like a message. She'd lived in this house for 31 years. Before that, she'd lived in an apartment 2 towns over. The one she left in a hurry, according to my mother, without ever explaining why. My mother never liked to talk about her sister. Whenever I asked, she'd change the subject the way people do when the subject frightens them more than they want to admit. I found one old letter in my aunt's desk, half finished, dated 11 years ago. It read, "I think it's learned the house better than I have. I think it's waiting for the day it doesn't need to copy anymore." She never finished the sentence after that. I want to be clear about the timeline because it matters. The letter was dated 11 years ago. The camera system was installed 15 years ago. Which means for 4 years, my aunt lived in this house with no stream, no 5th feed, nothing watching her but her own 4 cameras. And something changed. Something started watching back. I went through 15 years of my aunt's diary entries. She kept them in a locked drawer, and I broke the lock the 3rd night. Because by then, sleep wasn't something I was doing anyway. The entries got shorter every year. Not because she had less to say. Because in her words, it listens better when I write less. By the 4th night, the stream had stopped showing the hallway. It was showing my bedroom, my real bedroom, the one I was standing in, laptop balanced on my knees, watching myself watch myself. Except the me on screen wasn't holding a laptop. The me on screen was sitting very still, staring directly at the real camera, the one that, again, didn't exist. with an expression I have never once made in my life. Calm, almost patient, like it was waiting for me to notice. I did notice. And the second I did, the version of me on screen smiled. I have never smiled like that. I checked in the mirror to be sure. I don't have that many teeth. I did what anyone would do. I packed a bag. I left the laptop open. I didn't want to touch it, didn't want to close a window on something that might be watching me close it. And I drove to a motel 40 minutes away. I thought distance would fix it. I was wrong in a way I didn't understand until the next morning, when I woke up to a text from an unknown number. It was a single photo. My motel room, taken from an angle inside the room. A corner where there was no camera, no vent, nothing but wall. In the photo, I was asleep in the bed, which I was at the exact moment the photo was taken, which I confirmed because the text arrived at 3:14 a.m. and I checked my phone at 3:14 a.m. from that same bed, and there was nothing there yet. I drove back to the house the next day because staying away clearly wasn't protection. It was just delay. And delay, I was starting to understand, only made the thing on the other side of that screen more patient, more thorough. I opened the laptop with my hands shaking so badly I had to set it on the floor. The stream had changed. It wasn't showing a room anymore. It was showing a mirror image of the room I was standing in, live, in real time, matched to the second. Except in the reflection, the fourth door was closed again. I understood then, too late, what my aunt's unfinished letter meant. It wasn't learning the house so it could copy it forever. It was learning the house so it could finish building the one piece that was missing. And the missing piece wasn't a door. It was a person who belonged behind it. I stopped sleeping in the house after that. I slept in my car in the driveway, doors locked, phone flashlight aimed at the front windows all night, watching for a light that shouldn't turn on and did anyway. The kitchen, every night, exactly at 3:14. I called my mother. I asked her finally why my aunt left that apartment 15 years ago in such a hurry. There was a long silence before she answered. Long enough that I knew the answer would be worse than anything I'd imagined. She said something had learned to look like her, my mother said. She said the only way to be safe was to make sure it never finished learning. Finished learning what? My mother didn't answer that. She just said very quietly, "Don't watch the feed anymore, whatever you do." I'd already watched it 40, 50 times by then. I went back into the house one final time to grab the laptop, planning to destroy it, throw it in the river, anything to stop the feed. I told myself that would be enough. I found it on the kitchen counter exactly where I'd left it, screen glowing, already open to the stream. The hallway, 4 doors all closed, and standing at the very end of it, facing away from the camera, was a figure in my clothes. The exact clothes I was wearing right then. I said my own name out loud just to hear something real. On the screen, the figure's shoulders tensed like it had heard me. Then, slowly, unnaturally slowly, it began to turn around. I didn't stay to see the face. I grabbed the laptop and I ran. I threw the laptop into the river that same night. I stood on the bridge and watched it sink. And for 1 hour, I believed it was over. Then my phone buzzed. A new email, no subject line, sent from my own email address. An address only I have the password to. One attachment, a video file. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that now. But some part of me needed to see how it ended. The same part of me that opened the very first file 6 days ago in a parking lot. Before any of this had a name. The video was 11 seconds long. It showed the hallway, all 4 doors closed, the timestamp ticking forward in real time, matched once again, exactly to the second on my phone. Then, one by one, all 4 doors opened at once, and behind each one stood the same figure, wearing my clothes, all 4 of them turning toward the camera at the exact same instant. All 4 of them smiling that smile I don't have enough teeth for. The video ended there. No sound, no explanation. That was 3 nights ago. I've moved back into my old apartment. I don't own a laptop anymore. I've disabled every camera on every device in my home, unplugged the smart TV, taped over my phone's camera the way paranoid people do in movies I used to laugh at. But last night, my neighbor knocked on my door to tell me my porch light had been left on since 3:14 a.m. I don't have a porch light. And this morning, I found a folder on my phone that I never created, containing one video file I never downloaded. The file name is the same as the one my aunt left me. Word for word. Watch underscore it. Underscore. Before underscore. They underscore do. .mp4. I haven't opened it yet. I'm not sure if that's because I'm afraid of what's on it, or because some part of me is afraid it already knows what I'll look like once I do.